we go. Right, so this bug here, right? So we have that whenever we spawn a projectile, we like immediately depenetrate because it's spawning inside of us. Not very good. So we should probably modify the transform in some way so that it's not spawning inside of us, it's actually spawning like in front of us, probably like a few units in front. So let's do that. So I'll go into fuck player. So here we're shooting. So I'll actually save the transform here. I'll do F transform. Whoops. Projectile trans. I'll call it spawn transform. So we'll sort of set each thing individually. So I'll set spawn transform dot set location. I don't know why it's not a variable. It's like it's always functions for some reason. I actually don't know why. Yeah, so we want to set the location. So what would be a good way to spawn this in front of the player?
Current location plus the actor forward times some value to place it in front of you.
Good idea. Let's do that. So we'll do get actor location. So that's the position of the actor. So get actor location plus get actor forward vector times 300. I don't know. I don't have the best.
150 worked for me.
Is it possible to reference the sphere radius of the actor?
Yes, it's complicated, and we will actually make it so we can do that. But that's a really good idea, and we might do that later. So yeah, let's keep that in mind, that idea, because I think it's very good. Great. So we set location to be actor's location plus the forward vector times 300. So then instead of get actor transform in here, I will just do spawn transform. Like so, so feed that in. Looks good, right? I don't think... Is there anything I've forgotten here, do you think?
Oh, a bit of rotation.
Yeah, the rotation, of course. So I'll just set the rotation here as well. To be get actor rotation. Like so. Oh. Okay, so the thing is that for some reason F transform only works with quaternions. So you can see here saying, oh, you cannot... There is no user-defined conversion from F rotator to F quat. So we need to actually convert this to a quaternion. I think there is a help function called get actor quat. Yes, okay, great. So we can instead just do get actor quat, which will return the actor's rotation as a quaternion. So that's good. So now the spawn transform has a location and a rotation. This is actually kind of good, because then we don't have to scale. Like if we scale down the player for some reason, we still want the projectile to be the same size. So we don't have to worry about that. Let's compile. Okay, let's play. Ah, fantastic. So now when I shoot, it's shooting in front of me. It's actually quite a bit in front, so maybe we should just... Maybe we should make it a little bit less forward. This 300 was maybe a little bit overkill. Let's do 100. Okay, there we go. So now it's like coming out of our crotch. Doesn't look great. And it also doesn't, like, if I look upwards, it's not actually going upwards. So that's also a thing. And if I look downwards, it's still going forwards. But at least it works, so that's good. So the reason it's not going upwards and not going downwards is because in Unreal, there's a thing called control rotation, and there's a thing called actor rotation. So actor rotation is, you know, the actor's rotation, not very straightforward. So if I push this guy, then the actor rotation is being affected, so it's falling over and so on. And that's great. However, the thing that's actually controlling the camera, so the thing that's like looking upwards and looking downwards, since we don't want the player, if this is the player, if this waterboard is the player, right? We don't want, if I'm looking upwards, the player to go like this, right? We don't want the capsule to rotate, right? That would be kind of weird. Instead, we just want the head to rotate upwards, with the capsule staying upright. So the way that Unreal has solved that is that the camera using the camera uses something called the control rotation to look upwards and downwards, and not the actor rotation. So the control rotation is sort of what we affect when we look upwards and downwards and right and left. However, the yaw of the actor is still affected by the control rotation. As you can see, I can yaw around, and the bullets will follow that. It's just a pitch that is not being inherited by the actor. That's only the camera. So that's cool. So instead of setting rotation to get actor caught, let's get the control rotation. And I should say, control rotation is not a thing for actors, it's a thing for pawns. So pawns have a thing called a control rotation, and that's being fetched from the player controller or the AI controller. So it's not like an engine feature, it's more like a pawn feature. So we should have control rotation here. Great. And unfortunately, I don't think you could do get control quads. No, you can't. So we'll have to manually convert this to a quaternion, and you do that by just typing dot quaternion. So now we're setting the rotation of the thing to instead of being the actor's rotation, so it doesn't get pitch, we'll set it to the control rotation, so pitch will be involved in that, and then we're converting it to a quaternion. So let's compile. So now hopefully if I look upwards, okay, so it's still not spawning in a great location, but at least it is actually, you can see if I look straight upwards, it's also going straight upwards. And if I look downwards, it's going straight downwards. So now we're using the control rotation to control, to control where it's supposed to be flying. Still not very satisfactory though, because you know we're not. It would make more sense for the thing to come out in the middle of the screen, right? So if I'm looking upwards, it should like sort of appear right here in the middle and fly straight upwards instead of like spawning out of our dick and then just like going upwards like this. I think that's kind of weird. So. Okay, so maybe we shouldn't use the actor location, we should use like the camera location. But hopefully you guys have been a little bit uncomfortable about like where's the camera coming from. Like if you're in Unity, you have to make the camera yourself to actually, like if you want to make a first person shooter, you have to attach like a camera to a game object or something. But we never even touched the camera, we never did anything with the camera. And if I actually look at the fuck player, there's no camera here. It's just an arrow component and a mesh. So how is it deciding where the camera is? So this is another quirk of how possessing works in Unreal. What's happening is that when we possess something, it will look for a camera component. So, you know, we can possess anything. We can possess like this triangle here, and it will look if it has a camera component on it. But if it doesn't, it will just sort of create a camera. So it will create like a virtual camera and possess using that. And that's what's happening with our player. We are possessing the player, and it's just sort of creating a camera since it couldn't find one. But since we kind of want to know where the camera is to spawn the thing from it, so we want to spawn like this little projectile from the camera's location and rotation, it would be good at this point to actually create the camera ourselves. So go away from this auto-generate the camera and create our own. So I think that's a valid step to take. So I'm actually going to go into the fuck player and add a camera component here.
Emil,
yeah?
Could I stop you for a minute?
Of course.
I was an idiot and closed down Unreal for some reason when I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, I'm gonna share my screen.
Yeah, it's just like you shut me down, so now you've lost Unreal privileges.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes. It says this: the following models are missing or built with a different engine. Test. Would you like to rebuild them? And when I try, it just doesn't do anything.
What's the log?
If you show log.
Well, the log goes away. Open it up in Visual Studio, I would say.
You mean these, or?
Yeah, open up test SLN.
Test SLM.
Furthest down almost.
Oh, there.
There it is. And then try starting from here instead. Let's see what happens if we get. Then hopefully, if we get an error, we should be able to see the error. Because if you open a log, it's like, oh, I want to see the error. Obviously, so you open a log, but then it's like, there was an error. It's like, I hid the log from you. It's like, good luck finding it. So it's a little bit annoying like that. Okay, so now is nice, nice parsing 31,000 files. That's gonna be fun. Yeah, so he slammed that F5 button. Smash like and subscribe. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, cool. So now you're actually getting a. Now you're actually getting an error. So you can type, press no there in the build errors. So let's see. It says unrecognized type use sphere mesh components. So let's double click that to see what that means. Okay, yeah. So here, what's happening is that you have forward declared it. So it's not a problem with compiling. Rather, it's that Unreal has recognized that there's nothing called a use sphere mesh component. Like, that's not a component that exists. And I'm assuming you're trying to make a sphere collision, like a sphere collision, right?
Yeah, this is just from the projectile. I was having some problems with it because it didn't, for some reason, when I compiled, it didn't recognize the files. So I just removed some include files to see what happened, and it didn't really change anything. So I was like, wait, what's happening here?
Yeah, and so the problem is that it's not called use sphere mesh component, it's actually just use sphere component. So you just remove the mesh, and then you should be fine.
Just remove here the mesh, or?
No, static mesh is correct, but use sphere mesh is not a thing. It's just called use sphere component.
Okay.
So if you get that error, like unrecognized type, that means that you have forward declared it correctly or included, I guess, but Unreal is not finding that type. Like, it's not a type that it can find anywhere. So that was why you got that error. You also gotta replace it there.
Change it here. Yes.
Yeah. Like so. And now, might be in C++ as well, but yeah, that should fix your error by just swapping those out.
I'm also getting a really weird thing. I think actually Philip has the same issue if you hover over the red thing at the top. Yeah. I get that same.
I've gotten this all the time. I don't know. I created a class using the blueprints, and it still gave me this. And I was like, wait, is this just Visual Studios fucking with me right now? And there is nothing wrong, because it has given me red lines here, like U class, and it still works, but it's just red underneath. And I was like, okay, it's just a quirk of Visual Studios, I believe. But if you're having the same problem, maybe there's something going on here, because then it's not just me setting it up incorrectly.
No,
yeah,
that's just,
I don't know.
That's just IntelliSense can't handle Unreal. So I would just in the error list there, do you see it says build plus IntelliSense? It's a little bit it's a drop down in the top, right next to the number of errors and number of warnings and stuff, in the top of the error list, in the error list window, but at the top of the error list window.
Build only?
Yeah, it should be build only.
Where it says 13,000 errors.
Yes, where it says like 13.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so that's
And
like
then
intelligence is like, what's going on? You're doing everything wrong. But it's like intelligence, just relax, go back to bed, everything's okay.
Then to the right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
bit to the right. See where it says build plus intelligence now?
Yeah.
There.
Just do build only.
Build only.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
We don't-
assuming that's because there's lots of macros that are not really C++ macros and stuff
Yes.
and such.
And it's like, since Unreal is like generating code and it has its own build system for like include paths aren't using like the default C++ include paths. They're using their own build system to generate which includes paths are valid and so on, which means that intelligence has no idea what's gonna happen. It has no idea which includes are valid or not, because it's using Unreal's build system. It's not using just plain C++. So that's why intelligence, it's trying its damnedest, but it's not doing great. So that's why we just turn it off. And that's
And
why.
then- And then my artist friends wonder why I don't like using Unreal. Like, oh, Unreal is so perfect. Like, there's no flaws with it. And I try to tell them, like, have you tried coding with Unreal?
Have you
Like,
tried coding?
like,
It's like,
you have
no,
no
actually, no,
idea
I have
what
not
you're
tried coding. Yeah, I mean,
Things look so good when you put them in a scene.
Oh yeah, I bet. But
I
I
mean-
can't get it to compile, so I wouldn't know. Like, I don't know.
I mean, every engine has its quirks, its
yeah.
ups and downs. This is sort of like, you know, the downside of using a C++ engine is that, like, you know, you get the pros of it's being very fast, you have a lot of control, like you can do literally anything, you can hack the engine in any way. But that means like you get the ugly sides of C++ as well, with like, you know, the build system not being the absolute best ever. Where, you know, Unity went with the C# style, where they have sort of, you know, they can generate code easier, they can hack sort of the .NET to do sort of what they want to do, so they can make the code very pretty. But then of course you have no access to the actual engine code of Unity. So you cannot just go in and change stuff, you cannot go in and see the hacks and the ugly hacks that they do. It is sort of hidden from you. Yeah, it is ugly, but I mean, it's pros and cons. Like it's pro that you get more control and more power, but it's con that it's more ugly and it's a bit more annoying to work with. But you know, it's all a preference thing, and it's all a getting used to it as well.
I just love those freaking errors. It's just like there are too many errors for intelligence to function properly.
Yeah, but I mean, intelligence is fucking. It's always been stupid. Intelligence,
It's like, what?
even in the first C++ class, where it's like, oh, we're doing SDL, and I'm like, okay, let's turn off intelligence. Like first, the step one, because that's just gonna scream at us, and I'm not feeling like listening to that.
Was there
that's why-
anything else I had to change here, or was that it?
I mean, it looks good to me. You might want to compile and see if it works, but you might have to change in the C++ file as well, the CPP file that if you wrote use for your mesh there as well. So that might have to be changed as well, but otherwise it looks good.
Okay, I'm gonna try and start.
Yeah. Cool. So let's continue. We were doing something. We were sending a camera, right? We were putting a camera on the player. So I will just add a U camera component here. Camera. So I will make that a U property, visible anywhere. Always good to do. And then in the constructor, I will create the camera. So I'll just do camera is equal to, what do I write?
Create default subclass.
Yes, subobject, but yes.
Oh, right.
The U camera component, excuse me, and then I'll call it camera.
Does that name have to be the same as the variable name, or is that just for the blueprints?
No, you can call it anything.
Cool.
But it's a good form to call it the same thing. So that's a camera, and then we have to set up the attachment. So I'll do camera setup attachment, and we will attach it to the capsule of the player. I don't remember what it's called, so let's go into a characters to check up what the capsule component is called. Okay, well there it is, but it's private for some reason, so thank you Unreal. So it's probably like get capsule component, probably. Get capsule, oh there it is. Okay, so here's the function to get the capsule component, so we will just attach it to the capsule then. Like so. So there we go. So now we should have a camera on the player. Let's recompile and see if it goes up in fire. Fire and smoke in hell. Probably will complain that we haven't included the camera. I would assume. Yeah, there we go. So fuck player is not. Camera component is not included or even forward declared in the header. So we're gonna make sure to do that. So whoops, I will just I'm getting absolutely spammed. Bye bye. There we go. So it's like writing to me. Okay, there we go. So in the header, I'm just gonna do class U camera components. So forward declare that bad boy. And then in the CPP file, I will include it. And first one to find the path, get us a cookie. Go.
Camera / camera component at H.
Camera / camera components.h. Very cool. You get a cookie.
Good.
Sick. So let's go. See, I love cookies. Okay, let's compile and see what happens. Ah, what? Sync setup attachment cannot convert argument 1 from capsule component to using component. Rum bum bum. Can anyone guess why? I will tell you right now, uCapsule component definitely does inherit from using components. But there's another reason why this cast is failing. It's okay if you don't know, it's kind of a weird quirk of C++.
Is it because of magic?
Yes, I would say so. Yeah, there's magic involved.
My personal guess would be that the get capsule component is force inline and const, which would somehow mess up casting, maybe.
Good idea. I would say that would be my first look to see, like, okay, is this const and it's trying to cast it to a non-const, because that wouldn't work either. But in this case, both of them are not const, so that's not the problem in this particular scenario. But that's one of the first thing I looked for. So very good idea. But it's something else. Something that we just did. We just did something that's the reason for this casting failure. And that is forward declaration. So when you forward declare something, it doesn't know that capture component is actually inheriting from scene component, right? Because when you forward declare, you only type out the name, you don't type out the parent. So C++ doesn't know that it's inheriting from scene components. So we have to include, in this case, capsule components. So we will include it. And what's the path? I'm getting you guys used to searching of path because it's something you're gonna have to do a lot.
I've actually forgotten how to search up paths.
Just to give one quick, I will let you guys guess anyways. But the way I would do it is I would I will symbol search for you scene. Oops, not using component. You capsule component.
What was the keybind for symbol search?
Shift Alt S to symbol search. So
okay,
here,
there we go.
So here I can see the class U capsule component. It's in file capsule component.h, and here's the full path to that. And the way you find what the path is to include is that you look for either public or you look for classes, and that's gonna be the root folder for that module. In this case, the module is engine. So the root folder of that module is either classes or it's public. So maybe I can find, it's just a bunch of privates, whatever. But in this case, it's classes, which means this is the root folder, which means I have to type in components. So I have to in components / capsule component.h. it's okay if you don't remember. It's like as long as one person remembers in your class, then you know that's fine. You're responsible for spreading that knowledge later on. So there we go. Components / capsule components.
I don't really have the directories like tab in when I symbol search.
Really?
Yeah, those like right click that bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might
And
need
you
to right click
file.
and do file. No. Which one is it?
What was the shortcut again?
Shift Alt S.
Cool.
And I had to uncheck the like at the bottom there's show only symbols defined in current solution, because otherwise it would only look through like what 100 and something symbols.
Yeah, you should check this. Otherwise you get like a billion. A million things. You can also
I
if
had
you
to
well
uncheck it for the capsule component to show up.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's weird. But yeah, sometimes you might have to do it as well. Unfortunately. If for some reason it's not showing up, you can also use a file of just like capsule components. Try to open that file and then sometimes it will show up here. So then you get the path here as well. But sometimes symbol searches works better because the file might be named something else. Alright. So now we've included capture components, so hopefully if I compile now, it will be able to cast it to a scene component without yelling at me. Yeah, there we go. So now it compiled just fine. So if I play, I don't even remember what we did. Oh yeah, we added the camera, that's right. Now if I play, okay, so we have a camera. I'm a little bit shorter, you might have noticed that I'm a little bit shorter. I'm also not able to look up and down anymore. You can see that if I'm moving the mouse upwards and downwards, you can see that the projectile is still like angling upwards and angling downwards. It's just that the camera isn't following that. So we're back in Doom mode. But there is still a control rotation being sort of applied or whatever. So the reason for this is that by default, if we go into fuck player here in the blueprint version, we can see, okay, now we actually have a camera here. It's huge. It's like a gigantic camera. So it's here, and it's a little bit further down than before, so it's like at crotch level now. So you have a dick cam. So first order of business is probably moving it up a little bit, so we get like eye height camera. So I'll move it maybe up here somewhere. Maybe like there. So now we have eye height camera. And the reason it's not following the control rotation, remember there was two things. There was actor rotation and then there's control rotation. The reason is you have to check this magic bool here that I hate. That's called use pawn control rotation. So there's a magic bool, like always in Unreal there's a magic bool somewhere. So you have to check this for the camera to actually take control rotation into account. So then it will apply the pitch and the roll of the control rotation into the camera. So now, if we play, we are a little bit higher up and I can look upwards and downwards. So now we're actually taking the control rotation into account for the camera. Very cool. So now we can actually start fixing so that the projectile spawns from the camera's location and not just from these like a meter in front of our peepers. So I'm gonna let's do a quick 5 minutes. So let's get back 35, just grab some water and then we'll do the last half hour before lunch. So stretch your legs a little bit and I gotta go take a pee-pee. So be right back.